come here. The idea was bring to them here, and you can tell to them what is the expectation for our neighborhood. You know, cost me time with my family too. My son came today from California, and my wife wanna kill me. But I believe just half block from here. I want you guys respect the time. We have the little rule, you know, 1 minute, 1 minute and a half. Got every question we have a many question here, and plus we like to you guys make their own question to them how we can improve our neighborhood. You know, I am living here for 18 years and I love this neighborhood. I really love it, and I am really proud for the police department. A couple nights ago, they came to my next door neighbor. They are really professional. One bullet was not used, and they take the guy involved in drugs. Maybe you hear about a little bit, and one big explosion. That was no gun, and that was just the
Flashbang.
that, that one. What is it?
Flashbang.
Flash, whatever. Anyway, this is no formal thing like Weaver State create the debate. This is more familiar. I'd like to you please enjoy this one and make your own question. This is my last event I am making. I talked with my two and I said after here I will stop. I will enjoy with my wife. We are getting 30-year anniversary and I promised to take her to Italy and she's enjoy and she's really happy. I hope she don't kill me before. I love this neighborhood. I am planning to retire soon and maybe in 2 years restart again. But thank you so much to come tonight. And I like to respect the flag. Somebody want to be voluntary to do the flag ceremony? Who want to be the voluntary? Okay.
Will everybody please arise and repeat the pledge after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mike. You want to take the play, and now all time is for Dustin.
All right, thank you. Okay, very happy to be here. Just a brief introduction of who I am. I live just a couple blocks away from here. I love this town as well. I was raised, my grandfather was on the radio here in Ogden for 50 years. He was a man by the name of Len Allen. We used to do the parade. I was raised thinking that this was literally the greatest town in the world, and I still believe that today. So I've always just been raised believing that you be involved in the community as much as you can, because that's how you make it a great place. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, candidates. We really appreciate your time. We're going to start out with just a get-to-know-you question. I don't know how many people have attended other debates, so we will tend that way. The way I anticipate this going, I have about 10 questions curated by various people and formed by me. After we ask those questions, I will open it up, let everybody else that has anything that they would like to ask, we'll open it up to you guys, if that sounds okay. Okay? So first question, what are your qualifications to be mayor? What makes you uniquely qualified to run our city? And let's start with, let's have Mike start, and then we'll kind of alternate who gets to answer first after that.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you spending your Friday evening here, and Angel spending her Friday evening here, and all of you coming out. I grew up in Ogden. I grew up on the top of 9th Street, went to Horseman Elementary and Mound Fort Jr. My parents are back here and have lots of probably stories we don't want them to tell about growing up here. But I have a great love for this community, and I love where we're going and the direction we're headed. I had the unique opportunity to work during the 2002 Winter Games in Ogden, and When I grew up and went to college at Weber State, you would drive down 25th Street in the early 90s and you'd roll up the windows and kind of lock the doors and peer over the door jamb because almost every building was empty and there was really not a lot going on. And when the torch came through in 2002, we had 106,000 people that came downtown and got super excited about what was going on and about this event that brought the world together. And it really broke the apathy off of what was happening here for a long time. I've been involved, founded the Gold Foundation, was involved in the ramp tax, set that up, really worked on a lot of different things in this community that have made enormous changes. And I'm extremely proud of the opportunity I've had to do that. I believe in what's happening in this community. You know, when you look at all the national polls and national lists and rankings that we've had over the last number of years, that really matters. And this community went from kind of being a dead and a broken rail town into what CNBC rated as one of the top 10 boom towns in the United States. Not because of the economy or anything else, but because of the culture that's here, the way people come together, the way people help each other out. Second most charitable community in the entire United States of America. That's because everybody, and you all included, show up, help out, volunteer, make this a better place. We haven't outpriced everybody from being a part of this community. One of the things I like the most about it is that it's inclusive. You can get involved immediately. You can be from anywhere, any walk of life, and get involved in anything you want to do in Ogden, and that inclusivity is something I'm really proud of.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Angel Castillo. I am on the Planning Commission, and I'm also running for mayor. And I fell head over heels in love with Ogden when I came into the USA Cycling Masters Nationals in 2014. And I knew that when I was here that this is the place that I wanted to call my home. I never knew I could be emotional about mountains until I had them. And Ogden is a gem and has a special layout to it, and the people are warm and wonderful and kind. And what qualifies me to run for mayor has to do with, I got started in politics before I moved here, lobbying for the interests of a community that was being crushed and robbed of its identity by the larger city, because the city had not updated their general plan in over 30 years. And so imagine if spot zoning happened and people just started demolishing buildings down 25th Street. That's what I was on the front lines for. And when I moved here, I got here on a Saturday, I unpacked, and I was at a city council meeting on a Tuesday. And I stalked our planner and got on the planning commission because I want to make sure what happened in other cities with homeless crisis, housing crisis, was not going to happen in my city. I plan to grow old and die here. And I'm active and I'm involved in boards and I care.
Okay, thank you. By the way, when it dings, that means you have about 10 seconds, I guess, is what we'll go.
I thought that meant was a hard shot.
We're not, yeah, we won't go hard fast. We'll let you talk. Okay, second question, and Angel, we'll let you answer this one first. If you were to do a SWOT analysis on the city, what would you identify as our most important things? And SWOT, of course, stands for
strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
There you go.
I'm a marketing consultant, and I live, breathe, and die by SWOT analysis. You have to be able to take a holistic look at whatever product or business you are dealing with and find out what their strengths are. Ogden's strengths are our people. Ogden's strengths are our natural beauty. Ogden's strengths are our access to outdoor recreation. Everybody that comes here has an experience here, and I would say that Ogden is experiential, and that is a huge, huge strength. You can take photos of it, you can talk about it, but until you come here and you feel the specialness that is here and meet the people that are warm and wonderful and open and willing to welcome people and share things with them, it's out of a storybook, and every single person that's ever come to visit me here is blown away by our natural beauty and our people. Our weaknesses, in my opinion, are right now we are understaffed with regards to our police department. Public safety is a huge thing for me. I have been beating the city council about the head and shoulders for the last year and a half about raising the salaries for our officers. Our officers are leaving at quite an alarming rate to go to Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County because they pay, depending on experience, between $8 to $10 more. We need to keep experienced officers here. I know every single person here wants to see more officers on the street, wants to see foot patrols, especially our at-risk communities want to see foot patrols, and you can't do that if you're not fully staffed. Opportunities are our lifestyle, our outdoor recreation, and our festivals. We have amazing outdoor festivals that I think we can capitalize, and our threats are our rising housing costs.
Thank you.
I think we could all agree on the strengths that were outlined. I would not echo that. I think we all believe in that. You all are here tonight, and I look around in this audience of people. I've seen you all volunteering for the marathon and for farmers market and for everything else. We've done a great job of bringing people into our community. I think one of our unique opportunities is our architecture and our story. One of the things that a big developer came into town, he said, we went all over the western United States and looked for places where there was a story, there was a history, there was something we could get emotional and attached to. And Ogden got rich at the right time when we were the boomtown during the rail years, but you got poor at the right time too, and you kept all of these great buildings and all of this great history and this great story. That's something not a lot of other communities across the western United States still have, and it's not a story they can tell. You come downtown and you really get a chance to see and to feel that, which is one of the unique things I love about living here. Our diversity is absolutely critical. We're one of the most diverse cities along the entire Wasatch Front. That's something I'm extremely proud of and something we look to continue to build on. We can do things here that they can't do in any other city along the Wasatch Front. We're talking about festivals and bringing people together and things like our Twilight Concert Series and other things. Nobody can have that kind of a celebration in their community like Ogden can. I'm really proud of that. Threats, we still want to build our economy. Our economy matters. People need to work. People need to make livable wages. High-paying jobs are a really important and pivotal part of what our future will be made of.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, next question. Mike, we'll let you answer this one first. Weber State is a huge part of this neighborhood. Obviously, it's very important. We all live right next to it. A lot of us went there, and it's just a very big part of the neighborhood here. It's a big contributor to the local economy as well. Many businesses, however, seem disconnected from the university. As mayor, how might you better the relationship between business and really the city and our university?
All right, pop quiz, Weber State, Weber State. There you go, there you go. Appreciate that. I know there are a couple Weber State employees here. When I was elected mayor 8 years ago, I went and met with then President Ann Milner, and she said, we have not had a single conversation with anybody from Ogden City in 7.5 years. So we started a College Town initiative where the city and the college started to get together and work on initiatives collaboratively to say, what can we do? You guys need us to be successful, and we really need you to be successful and to drive our labor market and to train our students so that they can be successful in this expanding economy that we're seeing. That College Town initiative received a Town and Gown Award. It was about 4 years ago, which is one of the most successful collaborations between a university and a city in the entire United States. I graduated from Weber State. I bleed purple. I know a lot of other people here do as well. That is something that we'll look to continue. We just had a meeting a week and a half ago about some of these initiatives and how we can get more involved and help each other out. That will continue to be the driver. I've said a number of different times, our economy will be based on what happens at Weber State like we were on the trains for 100 years. That labor pool, that labor market in northern Utah, that's one of the things we have collectively in northern Utah, whether it's Weber or Davis County. It's Weber State University, Hill Air Force Base, and our aerospace and defense, and they're a critical component of that. We'll continue to work on that.
Excellent. Thank you.
I met with Brad Mortensen at the beginning of the year, right after he was appointed. I ran into him at a planning commission function, getting city opinions on things. And at that function, I asked Brad, I said, what do you need from Ogden that you're not getting? And Brad answered that question with, wow, nobody's ever asked me that before. So we scheduled the meeting, and I sat down in his office, and we talked for almost an hour, and we talked about how the rebranding of Weber for a caliber school as opposed to being a cheap school, and his most important need at that point was housing for his students. What we need at Weber and around Weber is a student experience, then that would be commercial, mixed residential commercial, housing for the students on top, commercial on the bottom, programming for coffee bars and cafes, things that students will be able to walk to. That is something that we need to do to develop an interest to move people across from the university to spend money at commercial businesses so that we raise our tax base. And then, of course, encouraging them to connect to downtown and have a downtown experience, which the BRT is going to be hopefully coming along in a few years. We were lucky enough to be selected out of 3 cities for that type of expansion, and I'm grateful for that, and we look forward to building that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into a little bit more red meat. I'd like to talk about RDAs. Okay. RDAs it's a redevelopment mechanism that cities use in order to make developments happen that otherwise normally wouldn't, in some people's opinion. What is your opinion of past use of RDAs as a redevelopment mechanism in Ogden, and what is your opinion on continued and future use of them? And along with that, I would also just like to express here or ask, what do you tell residents that are frustrated at the thought that RDAs are potentially taking money from the school district?
You starting with me?
No, I believe Angel, right?
Okay. RDAs are good and RDAs are bad all at the same time. There's a delicate balance that needs to be maintained, and my personal stance on it is we have been spending way too much money trying to develop commercial properties. We've spent $21 million. We spent $18 million on the Rite Aid property. We spent $600K on the Swift building with $2 million for cleanup. We spent $970,000 on the Courtyard Motel to be demolished, which is private property. That's a total of $21 million that you could have used to repair your streets and your sidewalks. And I believe that the RDA should be a tool and not just a big gun that's being shot. We are stewards of the taxpayers' dollars, and we need to make sure that we're focusing on our infrastructure. I understand that there are times that the RDA is good. Our Own in Ogden program is something I'm terribly, terribly proud of. I wouldn't be remiss spending millions of dollars on that, getting people into homes. But building commercial property and have it sit empty for over 7 years because we don't have a development agreement, I think that that's something we need to step away from and start putting money back into our community. We have $20 million worth of priority sidewalks right now. And that means those sidewalks that have sprayed yellow lines around them, those are liabilities, and we were sued and lost $300,000 when someone broke their leg. No more of that.
Thank you.
I think RDAs are an invaluable tool for an older community such as ourselves. And I'll just put BDO out there for an example. That is the poster child of how an RDA should work. In 2000, there was zero property value out there. We had no jobs, and there was nothing going on. That RDA will expire this year. It'll put $1.5 million into the city's budget. It'll put over $3 million into the school district's budget. So those investments, when you do an RDA, you put pipes in the ground, you put curb gutter, sidewalk, and everything else so businesses can get around that. Right now we have 13 million square feet under roof down there, and we have 7,500 employees that are employed making livable wages in Ogden. And had that RDA not been in place, that would not have happened. The reality is these are tools that the state has given communities to go in and work on redevelopment. Redevelopment is a lot different than development. When you look at a built-out community like Ogden versus green space like they have at Farmington Station or anywhere else, it costs a lot more to go in and do some of that development work. If we don't invest in bringing developers in and taking care of the infrastructure to support that, the fact is it just doesn't happen. We can choose to do nothing, or we can play by the rules that the state has given us to play by, and we choose to do that. We want to be competitive. We want to build our economy. We want to rebuild the community, and RDAs is a critical tool in making that happen.
Okay, excellent. And of course, I asked a second part to that, but what do you say to the people that are concerned about the school district losing revenue to RDAs?
I would say they're gaining revenue over years because the RDA, your property tax stays the same. And that money that they build when they make investments and move ahead, that gets reinvested into the infrastructure and to the other tools that are required for people to come in and make profitable developments. If we did nothing and expected them to come in and do that all on their own, they just wouldn't do it. Nothing would happen, and we would choose to do nothing. And we don't choose to do nothing. You're either moving forward or you're moving backward, and the state gave us tools so that we can choose to move forward and to improve our economy. And that is a critical tool for us being able to do that, especially in a built-out community. We're a lot different than a Farmington or all these other green spaces where they can go in and just work with bare dirt. We have to go in and really spend a lot of time and energy cleaning the ground and putting that infrastructure in.
Angel?
We have already invested enough in the RDA. We have the BDO to currently carry us and move forward. We have $20 million worth of sidewalks that need to be fixed. That money has to come from somewhere. Right now, the city is currently not financially sustainable. We don't have all the money that we need if everything broke all at once to fix it, and no city ever will, but we need to start planning for backing into how do we replace this in a timely manner. This is, and our schools do get the money back, but we've already been doing this for over 10 years. Our schools have been missing that revenue. There's enough product in the pipeline to be able to move that forward. I say we stop spending money on trying to act as a developer and reinvest in our community.
Okay, thank you.
Just add, though, that that RDA money can't be spent on general sidewalks. That has to be in the specific district that was elected and voted on by the city council. They can't just say, we're taking that money out and we're going to do something entirely different with it. So there's a difference there.
That is correct. Certain RDA money from this, monies from the state and the federal government must be spent, but we are putting your taxpayer dollars right alongside with it. It's not saying the entire RDA, it was $17.9 million last year, it's gonna be $200 million this year. I'm not saying that's $200 million of your tax budget, but there's a significant chunk of money in there that is being put beside it, matching it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, a little bit more red meat here. I had a lot of people.
It's a carnivore festival.
I had a lot of people ask me the questions along this line, so I need to ask it. Mark Johnson, who's the current city chief administrative officer, he seems to be a lightning rod in the city with lots of folks supporting him and lots of folks not. I'll just leave it basic there, but what's your opinion of his job performance? And I guess we'll start with Mike.
I appreciate that question, and I appreciate the opportunity to respond to that. Mark Johnson he's been with the city for 17 years. One of the questions that came up in the fraternal order of police debate was what do you look for when you're hiring a chief executive? And what I look for when we're hiring a chief executive is somebody that can get things done. It's not performance, it's performance, it's not personalities. And he works as hard as anybody I've ever seen in the city. He's a no guy sometimes. He knows the budget more than anybody else, and I appreciate what he's done, the expertise he brings to the table. He works tirelessly. There have been a whole bunch of wild accusations about what his salary is or anything else, most of which are completely untrue. We benchmark every single position in the city against other similar positions along the Wasatch Front, and I would put Mark and his performance up against any other chief administrative officer we have along the Wasatch Front. He knows how to get work done. He knows how to keep everybody out of trouble, whether it's me or the city council or anybody else. We appreciate that. He is a tireless public servant, and I appreciate the efforts that he's brought to the community and to the table. He is really good at what he does.
Thank you. Angel?
Well, I have never managed Mark Johnson directly, so I cannot speak to his performance, so I'm not qualified to decide whether Mark is good at his job or not. But what I am qualified to do is to share the information that I get from developers that come to me because I'm on the Planning Commission and ask me why it takes so long to get a project done. I know 3 developers that are doing projects in Salt Lake City that have specifically named Mark Johnson as the reason that they are not working in Ogden anymore, because that it takes too long, it's an adversarial relationship. Now, whether or not that is true, that is something that I've heard not from one person, not 2 people, but 3 people. So as a marketing consultant, that's data that needs to be looked at. We need to make sure that we are looking at each of our departments and finding out where the return on investment is. That is what a lot of people are concerned about. The Hostess site is empty. The Rite Aid site is empty. the Swifts building is empty soon after the EPA finishes and charges us $2 million because they don't do charity work. But where's the return on investment for what we're spending? And that is the responsibility of the CAO. And I would look to, if elected, to bring in an expert that is specializing in government. I'm specifically thinking of Kristen Cox, who works for Governor Herbert's office, who is an amazing person at efficiencies, turning productivity up anywhere from 5 to 20%. That's why Governor Herbert put her in charge of finance and budgets.
If I could just retort real fast, I'd say wait to see what happens with the EPA project in the SWIFT building. A good majority of that's going to be paid for by the Department of Defense, and that is because of the due diligence and the work that's gone into that. That was an enormous threat, not just to the city, but to the rivers and everything else, and not a lot of people would have taken that threat on, and we felt like it was our responsibility to do so, and that is going to be almost entirely paid for by the Department of Defense, because those were issues that should not have left bases and some of those other areas. So before you make judgment on that, wait to see what happens. We've got a lot of good things happening with that, and that's a project we're exceedingly proud about.
Good luck suing the federal government.
Yeah, that can go anyway. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the neighborhood. Let's talk about sidewalks. Angel, you mentioned that a little bit, and just walkability. One of the best assets of this area of town is the fact that people enjoy being outside.
Amen.
It's awesome. The streets here are used for a lot more than just driving. There are continually people walking dogs, biking, running, walking to school, practicing for track or cross country. It's all over. It's the East Bench. It's great. With all this said, the majority of this area is without sidewalks. How do we address this going forward to keep the neighborhoods walkable and safe?
Mike?
Who answered first last? I think it is Mike's turn. Yes.
Thank
you.
I'm happy
Sorry.
to go. We have right now with Wasatch Front Regional Council $550,000 federal grant for the Safe Routes to Schools project that's coming up. You all, I hope, supported the bond that went in to help upgrade some of our schools, and we have that $550,000 will be matched by $45,000 from Ogden City to do sidewalks around Wasatch Elementary. We're really proud of that. One of the reasons I chose to ride my bike to work every single day for a year in 2014 was to push more walkable, active transportation in and around our communities. It's something that I've been totally focused on. I was chair of the Wasatch Front Regional Council that brings in all of that federal money and talks about transportation and mobility and how to move people around and how to connect communities through either public transportation or anything else. Right now, the current schedule shows that we'll start the BRT project in 2020, so September of next year. That's a $100 million project that will change our community for decades to come. It'll go right through the heart of Weber State University. So the way we move people around when we continue to grow and expand is through public transportation, more walkability, more bikeability. The Grant Promenade's a great example of that. We had federal money that did almost $20 million of improvements in our downtown. Complete streets, and we'll continue to work on that. I think it's a critical and vital part of how we continue to grow and keep Ogden really unique.
Angel?
Well, I am all about walkability. It's one of the things that absolutely had me fall in love walking down 25th Street, and I do notice that we are missing some sidewalks. And when I had my hip replaced last year, I got real familiar with how many awful sidewalks we have that won't support a walker. And that is one of the reasons why I joined Roads to Independence, to make sure that I am a champion for people with disabilities, because having had that experience makes me understand that we have to take care of our people in our neighborhood, not only just our children and athletes, but the people who really need level surfaces. I think that while we are having that, we have a bond existing, we can put another bond to fix what it is that we need in the priority. It is so upsetting to me to know that we have $20 million worth of curb and sidewalk projects that are deemed priority. That is a city liability sitting there waiting for another person to fall and break something and another person to have a lawsuit. It also impedes people's ability to enjoy their neighborhoods. And although most of the time I am not a fan of bonding, when we have infrastructure that has been not paid attention to for so long, that's the only way we're going to get out of it. And so that's what I would do to help solve the sidewalks problem.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Angel, we'll let you answer this one first. What role does the city have in aiding the school district in continuing to improve the education of our children?
Wow, that's a big thing that I've been talking about for the last couple of years, and one of the Weber County, Melissa Freegang is in charge of what's called the Center for Excellence, and it's a countywide problem. 80% of our population is in that program, and what it is, it's not addressing the fact that there's a problem with teachers or there's a problem with schools. The problem that we have with our scores are the kids that are disadvantaged showing up that aren't ready to learn or able to learn. They have food scarcity issues, they have rent high mobility issues, they have childcare issues. These are things that need to be helped and tapped into our community by reaching out and working collectively with the nonprofits, the city sponsoring grants with them, and going underneath the umbrella of the county. This new program is not just giving people opportunity, it is a financial education component along with it as well. It's analyzing people for what are you best suited for? Should you be a nurse? Should you go to tech school? Do you want to go get a 4-year degree? Do you want to teach English? Who are you? What do you want to do? And then there's a mentor that's provided that helps that person move along there and gives them the connections they need to the state and federal resources available to get that education or those jobs. We need to be supporting people so that they can become financially independent, and they're going to need more than just opportunity. They need mentoring, and working with the Weber Center of Excellence is the way that I would do it.
Thank you. Mike?
I would agree that intergenerational poverty is a big issue that we have in a lot of our public schools. I put both of my daughters through the public schools that are here, and they had phenomenal opportunities. My oldest daughter, we just dropped her off about 4 weeks ago. She was one of the only 3 U.S. presidential scholars in the entire state of Utah, and was flown back to meet the president, the secretary of education, and everything else. Ogden schools have some really unique opportunities here. I think one of the challenges they have is not telling their story and talking about what happens. She started at the University of San Francisco with 56 credit hours, which is almost a junior in college when she got there. We have the custom fit program that goes through the Ogden Weber Technical College. They have all kinds of different programs at Weber State that college or high school seniors can get plugged into and really get a leg up on. I think we need to be telling our story more and talking about the unique opportunities that exist within the Ogden School District. I'm really proud of that. My mom, who's back here, was a school teacher for 34 years. Had I not put him through public school, I probably wouldn't be invited over for Sunday dinner. But we've been very involved in what's happening with the Ogden School District. We meet with them monthly and talk about ways to reach those children. The school district can reach those kids that are in crisis much more effectively than somebody from the government can. The old adage that knock at the door, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you, is the scariest phrase in the world. The school district can find these kids, help bring them up, help raise them up, and give them access to opportunities that they wouldn't have in any other way, and we've been very committed to that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's talk a little bit about crime, about the police force. If most people in this area will agree, we have for years had an issue with car break-ins. It's rampant and constant. The police, although helpful, the general opinion that we get from them is that the crimes committed are not big enough to warrant more effort. How do we reduce the number of crimes like car break-ins committed in our part of the city? And I believe Mike's first on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to start with that. Last year we had a 20% reduction in Part 1 crime. We're very proud of those men and women in blue and what they do. And unfortunately, those are oftentimes crimes of opportunity. People leave a computer bag on their front seat or their sunglasses or anything else, and when you do have an active area with a lot of people, those things happen. Part of what we can do to help improve that is education. Don't idle your car in the morning when you're in the house having a cup of coffee or making breakfast for your kids to warm your car up. We can all protect ourselves a little bit better, and part of what we need to have are good neighborhood watches. We get calls. The police can't be everywhere all the time. If you see something suspicious, report it, let us know, and our guys are very responsive about getting into that. It's been mentioned that there is an issue with our police force and retention and recruitment and everything else, but it's worth noting too that there are over 700 open positions along the Wasatch Front now. This is not just an Ogden issue, this is a recruitment issue across the entire Wasatch Front. Salt Lake City has over 500 sworn positions that are open. They only have 400 that are there. We have collectively way less turnover and job vacation with Ogden City Police Department than Salt Lake City does. I'm really proud of what they do, but we collectively as a community can help by monitoring that and getting involved, and our guys will be extremely responsive to that.
Thank you. Angel?
Well, you shouldn't leave your computer sitting on your seat. That's probably not a good idea. But if you have an area that is constantly patrolled by officers, you're not going to be having people hanging around looking for opportunities of crime. And we are not fully staffed. And we are not fully staffed because we don't pay enough. And we have the reasons that people don't respond to your car smash and break-ins is because we have real crime that we're taking care of. Our officers are doing a fantastic job at it. We get more calls per officer than Salt Lake City does, which is one of the reasons why we have a tendency to lose some of our officers, because they're working harder, they're getting paid less. And I would never fault an officer for leaving, for putting food on the table for their family. But what I think we can do is we can increase our actual salary and offer a whole lot of soft benefits that gets us close to where Salt Lake City is, so that they can look at us and not go, well, you know, I don't want to drive 45 minutes. And if you can get me close to a good salary with types of scheduling benefits and soft benefits that aren't going to cost the city, you'll have more officers on the street, plain and simple. It's a patrolling issue. You will not, crime goes down whenever an officer vehicle is parked in an area. It's proven psychologically, and when you have beat cops, it goes down even more.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move into housing. What solutions would you propose to maintain Ogden's reputation as a place for affordable housing, a place to raise a family, even as we see home costs continue to rise along the Wasatch Front and along our community? Angel, we'll start with you.
Okay, housing's my jam. I've been talking about this for over a year and a half to City Council, because I came from a housing crisis and I know what it looks like. While we cannot control the price of single-family homes, the market will control that. 50% of our city is single-family homes, and we are concerned about that other 50%. And we need to we have what's called a housing gap in median income and low income. And we do not have enough stock that's available. And we have people that are graduating Weber with multiple degrees that are making $36,000 a year because they're brand new graduates, and they're in a cheaper rental because they're trying to save to get a house, and we don't have, and then it slides down. We need to figure out how we're going to increase our own in Ogden program, get those people access to lower cost loans so that they can move up into that condo, into that townhome, and then make more space. And then we also have to build. We have to build housing that is going to be affordable, and that's called inclusionary zoning, which means that anybody that builds a developer, 10 units or more, you set aside 20% in perpetuity for median income and lower income properties, and that moves with the rate of the city, but it's always there. There is no magic bullet for housing. There is no magic bullet for homelessness, but you can put in place a series of pressure release valves to help mitigate the problems, and other cities across the nation have been doing this, and we should be too.
Thank you, Mike.
I would say we just had the last two city council meetings, we had a housing study. And so the council members have been asking for a housing workshop on what we have, what our inventory looks like, how that works. And 80% and 50 to 30% of the median household income, we have, not only do we meet the needs of our community, we have a 4,000 unit abundance in that income range. We don't have enough. No community along the Wasatch Front has enough to meet the needs of the extremely low income. That's something that we all have to be looking at and working on. But 80% of the rentals in the entirety of Weber County are in Ogden City, and that's been the case for a long time. So one of the programs that was mentioned earlier was the Own in Ogden program. We put over $9 million into that every year. And when we went through the recession and there were all the foreclosures and everything else, we worked really hard at making homeowners, giving them an opportunity to come in. That's, if you look at a lot of the studies about economic mobility and what is happening, one of the things that brings people out quicker than anything else out of intergenerational poverty is home ownership. They get a chance to build equity. They get a chance to have something they own, something they're proud of. I've said for a long time, if you're a homeowner, you're way more willing to get involved in what's happening in the community than renters typically are. If you have a problem in your yard and you're a renter, a lot of times you'll pull the blinds and wish the problem away. If it's your property, you have a lot bigger stake in what's happening there, And that's something we have been more aggressive than anybody along the Wasatch Front for and will continue to work on.
Okay. As a follow-up, and I'll start by saying I moved into Ogden City through a grant from the Own in Ogden program. It's been 15, 16 years ago now, and got me my first home. So
Are you in the same space?
No, we moved to a bigger home once we had kids, but that needed a yard. But we loved it. It was an absolutely phenomenal program. Helped us be able to afford that as a young married couple. Programs like Own in Ogden, though, and other things, the city has definitely been on a push for 10 plus years now to increase single-family home ownership in the city and have less rentals. Is that the right thing to do? Is that the right path to continue on, to continue to push to increase single-family home ownership over rentals?
My turn?
Yes, we'll start with you.
I absolutely think that is the right thing to do. As I mentioned, it helps stabilize the neighborhoods, helps stabilize those kids in their school programs. We had a teacher at D Elementary before we took that down and put homes in there that said every single kid, every single seat in her classroom, in her 4th grade classroom, turned over 4 times in 1 year because people would move from rental to rental to rental to rental. It helps the kids to have stability, to live in a neighborhood, to get to know their neighbors, to be involved in something, and to stay in the same classroom and the school system through their entirety of it. I think it's absolutely vital that we bring more home ownership in. You have to have a diverse product. You have to have places where people can rent if they want. We're doing that in our downtown and along the transit corridors, but in our neighborhoods, I think that it is absolutely vital that we bring in more homeowners and we stabilize them by letting them drop roots and really be involved in what's happening. You're far more likely to get involved in the PTA, neighborhood watches, or anything else if you own in that area. It's really critical that we do that, and we didn't do that for a long time, which is why I think, in my opinion, we had so many problems. We're making a big dent in that, and we'll continue to work on that.
Thank you. Angel?
Well, I agree home ownership is an important thing, but one of the things that the $9 million number that Mike mentioned must be accumulative because we spent $300,000 on Own in Ogden programs last year. And while we need to increase our revenue for the city, one of the things that he used Ogden Clearfield numbers. Our median income is $43,000, and if you look at that housing study that was presented, the state says that it must be Ogden Clearfield metro area. Average median income for Ogden Clearfield metro area is just under $70,000. So if you're using those numbers, yeah, we have plenty of middle housing, but if you use the real numbers of the people that live here in Ogden, 43,000 median income, we do not have enough. And so we need to build more rentals so that we can continue moving people into condos, into townhomes, into our existing homes that have been reiterated. I'm a firm believer that a homeowner does take pride in a neighborhood. They have stakes in the ground. The ground is sacred. They'll do anything to be a part of that community. So yeah, we want to encourage that, but the only way we're going to do that is if we spend more on the Own in Ogden program and if we build rental housing to allow people to save for those down payments to move up through the housing cycle.
Okay, excellent. Well, that concludes my questions. I'd love to open it up to anybody out here in the audience if they have a question. If you wouldn't mind, and we can do it one at a time. We'll do it. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, come up here and ask your question, and we'll let them respond for a few minutes. Oh, okay. And then after that, after we have a few questions, we'll give you guys a couple minutes to just do a final statement, and we'll wish you well and tell you thanks for being here.
Hi, I have a follow-on on the Own in Ogden program because my daughter and her fiance just went through this a year ago when they purchased a home. To qualify for Own in Ogden, they didn't have enough income at the Own in Ogden level to buy anything other than something extremely deteriorated and run down. So all of those things need to be adjusted as the housing.
That's right.
As the housing market increases. That might be why there was less Own in Ogden funds given out in the past year, because you can't qualify for a loan that high to buy a house and then still have the income levels to qualify for own in Ogden, if that makes sense.
Which is exactly why we need to bring development that has mixed-use commercial, that will have condos that you can purchase, that you can start at a lower amount.
And part of that money is federally funded. So the FHA gives a grant to the city, and it's been almost flat for the last 20 years. So the purchasing power that we had, it's not your taxpayer dollars for the most part that goes into that. Those are federal grants that we've aggressively gone after, but that's stayed really flat over the last 20 years. So the purchasing power and our ability to leverage that continues to dwindle a little bit. So that's an issue that we recognize and we've been working on.
Hi, I just have a question. As you know, Tuesday night, the City Council had a sort of a special meeting where Chief Watt stood up and reviewed the recent shooting, tragic shooting here in Ogden, which has been covered extensively. But my question is, and I spoke in the meeting, but my question is, I'm just wondering if we have a racial divide between our OPD guys and our communities, especially the poorer communities in Ogden City. And if we do, what would each of you guys do to try to improve on that and build a bridge? Because it seems like right now, based on what I saw the other night and Chief Watt's remarks, I think there's a big chasm there that hasn't been addressed. So, thank you.
I'll start with that. I'm happy to start with that. When I came in, we didn't have a diversity officer in the mayor's office. We didn't have a diversity commission. We didn't have a diversity liaison in the police department. We recognized that that was an issue. And we have implemented all three of those things in the last 7.5 years. It's something that every community struggles with. How do we communicate with some of those that don't want to be communicated with or are reluctant to come to a city council meeting? I appreciate you being there, and I appreciate everybody that was involved in that conversation. And having those community conversations is something that we need to work on building trust with. You know, the police department last year had over 80 public events, whether it's coffee with a cop or they go to the elementary schools or they try to make themselves accessible to people, but bringing people in is sometimes a tougher sell. They've done a great job of reaching out into the community and trying to make themselves accessible and to be friendly and to talk about what they do and to talk about what the community can do to help them. 80 different events in 1 year is a ton of outreach, and we're really proud of what they're doing. That's something we'll always continue to work on. It's something we work with the city council on, and we have conversations all the time about how do we have more community conversations. If we're having a special planning meeting for West Ogden and you have 8 people that show up, how do we get more people to come in and to get involved in that? And that's a challenge that I think we're always going to continue to address, but we've done that in a very dynamic and dramatic way in the last number of years, and we'll continue to work on that.
Well, I agree that there is a chasm that is formed, and we're not doing enough. A diversity commission that has no teeth, that isn't allowed to speak directly to the press, that has a $5,000 operating budget that is run by one person, is not enough to outreach to a community and build a bridge. And while I go to coffee with a cop all the time, I love and I support our officers. I have been rallying for higher pay for officers ever since I got here because they're an integral part of our public safety. They're not having the right type of events that are inclusive enough, and it's because there's only one Diana Lopez, and she's spread really, really thin, and it's not a priority to build those bridges with that community. I have sat down with hundreds of members of that community and asked, what do you want? What do you need? And if you were at that city council meeting, you could see the divide and you could feel the pain. It was palpable. The police want people to like them. They are there to serve. The community is anxious, and rightly so. And we need to be able to build those relationships and come together looking to outside agencies to facilitate those conversations so that people feel safe and building that bridge. Those bridges are not going to build themselves. We have to be committed to making our citizens of color feel comfortable and invited.
Hi, thanks for being here and answering our questions. I was at a planning commission that Angela sits on, and somebody, an outside person had come in and they approved a building, which I thought was too modern for our architecture. I was really unhappy with that. And one of the people on the board said that he wants to move past the past of Ogden to a more modern future, which I think would really destroy our cultural and architectural treasures here. I also heard the other day from my son that he went to a fundraiser to not tear down Union Station. I'm wondering, I don't know if that's true if they want to tear down Union Station, but would you guys protect our cultural architecture?
Part of what makes Ogden unique is architecture, and it's very, being born and raised in Chicago, it's very much like Chicago, this brick, beautiful architecture, and we have to preserve that. There's a reason that my campaign slogan is preserve what we have and plan for what we need. And the problem that modern building coming through is that our general plan hasn't been updated in over 20 years. We have been spot zoning things, and we've been working on small bits and pieces, and what we need to do is we need to activate and invest some money into our planning department so that they can pull together what it is that they want with exact design specifications of what it's going to look like. Because I don't know about you, I don't want to look like Draper. Not to diss Draper, but it's just not my cup of tea. I chose to come here because of the rich architecture, the walkable streets, and if we don't change that plan, then that's what's going to happen to us. As little bits and pieces are coming through, if the code isn't updated, we have to grant them approval because they meet the existing code. And when I've talked to our city planner said, oh, that's going to take 2 or 3 years. And in my mind, as a consultant, that's unacceptable. You hire some people that are outside that don't get benefits and bring them in, and you have those people work the counters, and you pull your seasoned planners together, and you knock out what you need to do in a year so that we can protect what we have.
To answer your question directly, absolutely not. Union Station is a crown jewel of our community, and we've been working with Union Pacific. In fact, we've been so aggressive about it that when we had the sesquicentennial, the 150-year anniversary of the rails coming together, and the CEO from UP came, they said, we will find a way to get you the land. So UP owns the land under Union Station. We own the building. And so we want to do a capital campaign to go in and improve that and to do good things with that. The lease expires with Union Pacific in about 6 years, but they promised, do not hammer our CEO when he comes over the UP property, because he knew that was one of our major intents. And so we will absolutely save that, and we've worked hard to save that 25th Street and that whole surrounding area. Talked about when I was in college and you drive down 25th Street, we had 35 of the 43 buildings were empty on 25th Street in the early 90s. Now that most of them have been activated, and the American Planning Association rated it as one of the top 10 streets in America just 4 years ago. So that history is vital and critical to what we're doing. It's critical to our story. It gives Ogden an authenticity that a lot of other communities don't have. We're very committed to that, and we will see a redevelopment of Union Station. That building's not going anywhere. We want it to be a community gathering place, and we want it to continue to be that anchor in our downtown, which a lot of other communities can't share and don't have.
Good evening, and thanks for showing up, and thanks for whoever put this on. Mr. Mayor, you said earlier that you believe that the homeowner probably takes more interest and gets more involved than the renter or the leaser, which I can agree on. In one of your flyers or mailers, you said your administration created 7,000 or 8,000 jobs in the city. So on that question, could you speak about that? What type of jobs? How long is the job here before you say it was created? What do you mean actually by creating one? Do those people live or not live in Ogden, and are they still around?
We don't know where they do and they don't live. I can tell you that we've averaged over 1,043 jobs every year in the last 7.5 years, and that comes through the Utah Tax Commission. So we don't collect income tax here locally. That goes, 100% of that goes to the school districts. But every time a new job is created, the Utah Tax Commission puts that on their rolls, and they say this job is in that area. So we know for a fact that we've averaged about 1,043 jobs, new jobs per year over the last 8 years. So where they live and where they pay their property tax and other things, we don't have any way to track that, but we're really proud. And per capita, for a city of 90,000 people, we've had more robust job creation than almost any other city of our size in the entire United States. That's something we've been very proud of, and something we'll continue to work on. You want to move people out of generational poverty. One of our occupational physicians says all the time, We don't get people well so they can go back to work. We get them to work so they can get well. And that's something we believe in. More jobs and more opportunity really does help raise the tide that lifts all the boats in the harbor.
Well, those jobs. Okay.
That was a fast
That's
minute.
it. Those jobs. We're going to talk about those jobs. With regards to how many are here, Mayor Caldwell is absolutely right. You really can't track that data. But one of the things that I believe that we're missing on with regards to growing jobs is focusing on the businesses that are already here, the smaller businesses that line 25th Street, that are those cool knitting shops and t-shirt stores and fashion shops and clay shops and the things that make that experience of walking down that street. We have over 18,000 businesses that are here. If we just focused on a third of them that are the smaller businesses and asked them what it is that you need to hire one or two more people. Is it property? Is it a piece of machinery? Is it marketing support? We are focusing a lot on romancing larger businesses, and there's a certain amount that does need to be executed in that fashion, but I say we focus on the people that we have here. Because if you recruit a brand new business at a big company that's going to bring 20 or 30 jobs, it's going to take them 2 years to get here. They're going to have to buy a property, they're going to have to renovate the property, then they're going to have to staff up the property, and it's probably going to take them 6 to 9 months to get through planning. So we need to focus on a faster return on investment by growing the local businesses that we have here, focusing on people that are already here.
Dustin suggests 2 more questions, and we have one more, and we can take one more question after her.
Well, I think you answered my question. My question is that I've been to the mayor debates, and a lot of times it's talking about big business, which is great, and there's definitely a place for that, but for small businesses, how are we going to support them? There's another business going out on 25th Street.
6 stores over the last 2 months are
and
gone.
it's so heartbreaking to see that happen, because that's part of, both of you have said, we love 25th Street, and how are we going to support them so that we can continue to have that look and feel and everything that we love about Ogden?
Well, part of the thing that there's something called incremental development, and if you're a planning geek, there's this fantastic podcast by Verdunity that talks about it, and it's part of the strongtowns.org movement. And what that is hyper-local, teaching cities how to be fiscally sustainable, work with what you have, and grow where you are. And there is something called a tri-party agreement that I would like to see enacted, where we tap into our local philanthropists and get them to participate. Instead of one of the halls writing a $20,000 check to a charity, the halls take that $20,000 and become part of a financing to get small businesses the tools that they need, the space that they need. And what happens is I'm overly simplifying it, but the entrepreneur comes in, the city works with the bank executes the loan, they get their gap funding, which is what the angel investor is paying for, and then they put the business into place, because that is the number one reason that small businesses fail, is they can't make their rent and their costs are too much. And so what happens is that they own the building, and it's in the terms of agreement. If the business fails, the angel investor continues to make those payments, and we put another business in there. And it only works if it works. You lose nothing if you don't cash out. It's been happening nationwide. It's called incremental development.
We have a system downtown out of our economic development department that's called the Business Information Center. The BIC is what it's frequently known as. We did over 600 counseling sessions with small business owners. When we talk about the job growth, 80% of that does come out of the businesses that are here locally. You do land an occasional Amer or Northrop Grumman's going to expand in a big way, but the vast majority of our energy goes into expanding those businesses that are already here. So that has been really successful, and that's something we'll continue to do. We do micro loans to some of those businesses to help cover that gap. Sometimes they call them groans. We can find it's a grant or a loan, and we have a review committee that looks over every application. We want to see that money come back in so we can reseed other small businesses that are in our downtown and that are trying to grow. Sometimes they don't work, and so that's why we call it a groan. Sometimes you don't always see that return, but it's there to help stabilize small businesses and to help accelerate their growth. And the vast majority of the job growth we've seen in our economic expansion has been from those small local businesses coming in, setting down roots, and making those investments. It's not just the big ones. They're nice. You always want a grand slam in a baseball game, but it's doubles and singles that typically win it for you.
One more question, Sede.
Hi, thank you. One of the things that people living all along the Wasatch Front worry about is air pollution. And I just wonder what the city has been doing or should be doing.
Well, they should be signing HB 411.
to reduce